It began with something hard to name, an almost imperceptible shift in the air. I was in the middle of explaining a portfolio strategy to a client when I felt it. A sharp tension creeping into the room like a storm warning. Even before the doors flew open, I sensed something was about to erupt. Then, like a scene torn from a movie, the entrance burst open with a thunderous bang that turned every head in the lobby. And there she was, Karen Miller, head of the neighborhood HOA and self-proclaimed queen of the office. Her arrival wasn't just loud, it was calculated, theatrical. She didn't just walk in. She owned the space with every clack of her heels against the marble. Her face was lit with a strange mix of fury and satisfaction, the kind you only see on someone who thinks they've finally won. She zeroed in on me like a missile. A perfectly manicured finger shot out in my direction as she marched forward. Clients glanced around, murmuring in confusion. "You're terminated. Effective immediately," she shouted, her voice bouncing off the high walls. Even the guy at the front desk flinched. "Collect your belongings and vacate my building within the hour." I could feel the blood rush to my face. All eyes were on me. Clients, coworkers, even the barista froze. The humiliation was overwhelming, but I kept my composure. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Karen stood there, arms folded, smile creeping in like a villain watching her plan unfold. What she didn't know was that she was already too late. I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "I think you may be confused, Karen." Her smirk turned sharp. "The only confusion here is you thinking your mediocrity was acceptable. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you." But Karen didn't know what had been quietly happening behind the scenes. Just a month and a half ago, I was a low-profile financial advisor, not flashy but steady. I enjoyed helping people plan their futures. The office was nothing glamorous, and the biggest nuisance in my life had always been Karen. She controlled both where I lived and where I worked, president of the HOA and the building manager. That double role gave her free rein to micromanage every corner of our lives. Her obsession with control was legendary. She'd nitpick thermostat settings, hand out parking violations like candy, and issue memos so absurd they belonged in satire. One misstep, whether it was questioning her policy or even sighing too loudly, and you'd either be called into her office or find an HOA citation stuck to your front door. Many good people left just to escape her reign. But I stayed. Not because I didn't want to leave, but because I had a plan. After my uncle passed away, I inherited more than I could have imagined. Enough to start fresh. But instead of splurging or relocating, I made a decision. I'd invest in something long-term. When I learned the very building I worked in was quietly up for sale, I saw my opportunity. Using a holding company to keep my name out of the spotlight, I placed an offer. No one knew, not even Karen. Within days, it was accepted. The final documents were signed just this morning. As of 9 a.m., I was the legal owner of the entire office complex. And now, here she was, putting on a public show to strip me of my dignity. Completely unaware that the floor she was standing on was mine, I gathered my papers and calmly stood. "Apologies for the interruption," I said to my clients with a light nod. "Would tomorrow morning work better for our meeting?" Karen's face twitched as she processed the calm in my voice. But I didn't wait for a reaction. I walked past her with measured ease, knowing the tide had turned, and she was standing in water rising fast. It began with a strained silence after the meeting ended. Karen lingered behind, waiting for the room to clear. Once we were alone, she stepped in close, her voice sharp and venom-laced. "I've been dying to say this, you're useless. No ambition, no fire. People like you just take up space. People like me climb over you." I didn't react. Instead, I simply said, "You might want to reconsider that." I turned toward the exit, pulled out my phone, and made sure she could hear every word. "Hey James, yes, everything's finalized. The building is officially under my name as of this morning. Please have the new management notices ready to go out tomorrow. Thanks." I ended the call and glanced over my shoulder. Karen's expression had frozen mid-smirk, disbelief painted across her face. I walked away, leaving her speechless. The next morning, I was at the building bright and early, joined by my new property management team. We posted notices on every floor. Smith Properties now owned the Oakwood Professional Center. All concerns were to be directed to David Williams, the new building manager. At precisely 9 a.m., I was in the surveillance room watching the live feeds. Karen arrived at the front entrance, swiped her access card. Nothing. A red light blinked. She tried again. Still locked out. Then came the banging on the glass doors. A security guard calmly approached and pointed to the notice. She read it, her face tightening. David opened the door and invited her in, attempting to explain. But she brushed past him, storming toward her office. When she tried the doorknob, it didn't turn. The locks had been changed. By now, employees had gathered, sensing something was unfolding. Karen spun around, seething. "Where is he?" she shouted. "Where's that nobody who thinks he can mess with me?" I stepped off the elevator, meeting her stare. "Good morning, Karen." David already explained the management change, I believe. She let out a shaky laugh, but her eyes were frantic. You bought this place? You drive a decade-old Honda." "I live below my means," I replied. "But that's beside the point. Smith Properties is my holding company. I acquired the building last week. The paperwork finalized yesterday, just about an hour before you tried to fire me." Her face lost all color. "This is a joke. You can't do this. I've run this place for 7 years. You're welcome to reach out to legal," I said, handing her a business card. "We've already documented everything. Staff complaints, surveillance footage, procedural violations." Her hands trembled. "As of this moment, your employment has been terminated. Please collect your personal items. They'll be packed and delivered to your home." That's when the meltdown started. She screamed, hurled insults at everyone nearby, cursed the staff, and kicked over chairs. Then she picked up a potted plant and launched it across the lobby, narrowly missing an elderly client. Next, she lunged at the front desk and shoved the receptionist's computer to the floor. "This is my building," she shrieked. "You're all fired. Every last one of you." David called security. I tried to calm her down. "Karen, please. This isn't helping you." She spun toward me, her eyes wild. "You think this is over? I'm still HOA president. I'll fine you for every blade of grass out of place. I'll make your life miserable." When security arrived and tried to escort her out, she slapped one of them across the face. That was the last straw. David contacted the police. Officers arrived quickly and tried to speak with her calmly, but she wasn't listening. She barricaded herself behind the reception desk, making threats. When she tried to push through the officers to reach me, they were forced to restrain her. She was arrested on the spot, charged with assault, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, and trespassing. As she was escorted out in handcuffs, the building grew eerily silent. The following week, she stood before a judge. Her excuses didn't impress anyone. She was sentenced to 100 hours of community service, fined $7,000 for damages, and served a restraining order. She could no longer come within 100 feet of the building or contact any employees. Then came the final blow. The HOA board, already under pressure from circulating footage of her arrest, convened an emergency session. The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed as president. When they told her, she just sat there, stunned. Her mouth opened as if to argue, but no sound came. For the first time since I'd known her, Karen Miller had no words.